definitely put a wrench in the works. The Hunter Secrets in particular, I feel would be quite useful, getting wide on the board and making sure that the Zoo can't take all the value trades is what you want to do there.
Well, here it is. First game of the Grand Finals. It would mean so much for either our competitors here. Xiaobai, I mean, it's always difficult to know quite how well-known players are within the Chinese community, but to us in the outside world at least, very much a newcomer, and we don't know all too much about him. So the chance to really solidify that reputation, whereas Maverick on the other side, I mean, the last big win I remember from him was back in the Tour Stop system where he won in Tours, France, kind of appropriately enough, the town called Tours. And so it would be a real return to grace for him here. Getting a win in a Masters Tour would really show him that he's still got what it takes to fight with the best of them. And so now looking at these two hands, Gia, how are we liking how this game starts off?
Definitely putting the favor on Xiaobai for these opening hands. At least he three-kept a very, very powerful combination of cards. The Tour Guide, Masters Tour Guide, to make the hero power cost 0 so that Dark Glare can get so much done in a single turn. He has the Dark Glare itself and Raise Dead for synergy with Dark Glare, or just a way to bring back Dark Glare itself. Maverick, he did keep the Prize Plunger, not ideally as a play on one, but kind of just saying if I don't hit Pharaoh Cat, it's good enough. As long as I have a minion on board, I absolutely can give up a little bit of the value and maximize being on the play.
Well, a pretty standard starting hand that you will go for from Xiaobai when you do have Tour Guide plus Dark Glare. He doesn't have all too much to actually complement it yet, though. This is a hand that needs a little bit of time to get rolling, but when it does, it hits like an absolute sledgehammer.
Yeah. Tough turn for Maverick here. I don't see him getting through to the Dark Glare unless he wants to use a lot of resources for the Prize Plunderer. I guess it's not all that bad because you can fit in one Thief, and the Stunner, honestly, as a minion on board, is kind of fine here. In the end, he starts off with a one Thief with the prep and gets Mana Biscuit. Oh, actually, Rolling Fireball is interesting, but I'm just concerned with the usage of prep right now.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of good stuff there. Like, he could have even gone for the secret just to activate Blackjack Stunner with it being prepped out. But in the end, Mana Biscuit gets him, obviously, huge amounts of value here. Getting the Miscreant down immediately is a very, very big deal.
This is insane. Prize Plunderer gets right through the Dark Glare now, and Maverick cheats out an insane amount of mana this turn. It's crucial that the Voidwalker sticks, though, so the Manari Mosher has a target to then trade over the Miscreant.
Well, still a very reasonable start here for Xiaobai. It's not like he's short on mana, at the very least. Bit of a tough choice here, though, because Manari Mosher is looking pretty good, actually, to me, just to clear off the Miscreant. I'm aware he can start to do some fancy stuff with Dark Glare, and he does want to tap every turn to get these Flesh Giants going, but even so, it's just too clean.
Completely agree. And because of the lifesteal, it actually does that one tick on the Flesh Giants anyway if you go Manari Mosher. The Dark Glare actually didn't... I mean, the mana that he would unlock by hero powering wasn't guaranteed to give him something to play anyway, so I think it's a pretty clear Manari here. Xiaobai just considering whether he wants to coin out the Tour Guide for the body on board, because he's very likely to just Dark Glare anyway next turn.
I guess he could Tour Guide and then not tap, because he can still just do it at the start of the turn next turn if he wants to play the Giant. And if he gets like a Flame Imp, he can go Dark Glare tap and then another damaging effect as well. I think this is very clever.
Yeah, it's slightly optimized by getting the 1/1 down on board right now, but it doesn't starve him of any options he would have had by saving it in hand next turn.
Yeah.
So as for Maverick, Draconic Lackey's pretty much the only play at the moment. Looks like he's going to VT with the 1T first and Shadow Step. I like the ordering on this. Potentially, if he gets a secret, next turn he could use that with the Stunner.
Yeah, I feel like whatever mage spell you're likely to play here, you're more likely to spend your mana on that than a 3-mana dragon. It's like only Brightwing that you would want to play off of that.
Fair. You get Fairy Dragon here, pretty okay too. These are not it, but Evasive Worm is the cheapest that is also reactive.
Amalgam, okay, that's a play next turn that has Taunt. Although I guess if you're a little bit less cautious about your health total, Big Ol' Wealth could draw you closer to, Secret Passage, Swindle, all these value cards.
I kind of am looking at the wealth because I think Maverick could just play down the stunner here and the magic just for bodies on board. Looks like he's going to prioritize redaggering. So if that's the case, I think I kind of would have wanted to see the Amalgam instead, so he has some flexibility to start with Magic Trick, and if there's nothing good, then do the thing. Oh, it's getting spicy.
It's weird, isn't it? Because it looks really good to just go Dark Glare tap. You get 2 mana at the end. But it's only pretty specific things that are actually good to spend that mana on, as opposed to just playing an 8/8 on this turn, which he did completely forego.
Right. I mean, I looked at the double Dark Glares and then I realized if you don't hit a 2-cost card or less, this is a pretty sad turn. Like, it's a turn that's not an 8/8. So I think I would have liked to see Xiaobai maybe sit back and contemplate that a little bit more. Flesh Giants definitely looking a bit stranded here.
Yeah, I completely agree. And even in like the quote-unquote worst-case scenario of Blackjack Stunner, that's good. Flesh Giant's still going to be very cheap in the near future as well. It's not like it's deleted from your hand by any means.
It could be that Xiaobai's valuing the Dark Glares on board as multiple minions rather than trying to get the value off of their attack, because Maverick has built this kind of board that Zhu would rather take some value trades before going face with. And then he just wanted the possible upside of getting a cheap card off of the tap. Still kind of iffy on it, but maybe that's where his head is at.
Well, this is shaping up a little bit more nicely now. That's essentially a free Flame Imp if you wanted to go for the Flesh Giant, but still, he's holding off here. He really wants to get cheaper Giants.
Yeah, in this situation where it prevents a value trade from Maverick and he gets the board anyway, I think I'm on board for this play. Now both the Giants can come down all at once while he's, managed to prevent as much damage as possible. And he gets the guaranteed discard on the Hand of Gul'dan. Insane.
It's something that I always missed when I started playing this version of Zhu, because when you see Wicked Whispers, you think lowest cost card, that never gets Hand of Gul'dan, but it happens surprisingly often, and you have to be able to spot these circumstances, as Xiaobai does. This is what he has been leading up to for a long time now, and when I see it in the flesh, a giant, it does look very, very powerful indeed.
It was easy to get baited there by thinking, oh, I can weave in the tap because the Giants will cost 0, but if you got an expensive card that you can't fit into the turn, then you ruin the guaranteed hand discard. So I think that was great from Xiaobai. Maverick going back to the discovering board, and these are not great whatsoever.
Yeah, what are we looking at here? Counterspell, I mean, yeah, none of these are really doing much of anything. Repentance.
Cheap one so that you can stunner and magic trick altogether, I guess. Ay, ambush?
2 of the 3 same again is not what you want to see here.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it comes right back afterwards. Like, I'm almost leaning more towards Eviscerate just because at least it kills something.
Sure, next turn. I'm just not seeing what the out is for Maverick.
Don't let the door hit you.
I mean,
that Xiaobai will be able to pick apart these secrets easily because the Flesh Giant is not isolated.
Yeah, as I see it, the out is draw flick before anything disastrous happens.
True.
And just destroy the Flesh Giants completely.
So for Xiaobai, it's going to start off with the tap, sure thing. The Jailer can test into the Stunner for any Paladin secrets and Bamboozle. None of it is there, so he can kill off the Hanar pretty easily. And then just play any minion but the Flesh Giant first to test for Repentance, and then fill up the board with the rest.
I mean, you just need to be thinking, what if it's Redemption here? Because that's when things get really scary. You don't want to start by soul-firing it necessarily, because then if it's Never Surrender, then you have to still sink the extra damage in. I think just trading there probably was the way to go about it, but it doesn't feel good.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good to miss the damage for sure, but I think he has built a board where, as you mentioned, if it's not Flick, it's GG.
Yeah.
Okay, this passage is cheap enough still that flick off the top can be played. He could delay it by another sap, I guess.
I think you just go for it now. It's as good as it's going to get. It's the only out.
Okay. A miss, a miss, a miss, and another miss. Yikes.
Womp womp. Yeah, I mean,
Well,
we could kind of see.
He can still sap one, I guess.
Right. Yeah, like we could see from his expression beforehand that he missed. He knew he was looking for it. We knew. We know that he was looking for it. And yeah, I think surviving for a turn here, it just is not good enough. Even ignoring the pretty insane amount of damage that Xiaobai has access to with the Whispers and the Soulfire.
Maverick's going to do his best to remove the damage off the board. Still has to tank the 2 from the Wriggling. And there's 14 remaining.
Care to make a wager, friend?
Does Xiaobai still just have straight up lethal with the Whispers and Soulfire? I guess it's not guaranteed because the Whispers could discard the Soulfire.
Even if it doesn't, I think it's 1 off 21 as I count it right now.
Correct.
But even then, his real job now is just to try and build up a board that can outlast even a flick off the top, which I think he can do. Each of these broomsticks is essentially a 2/2 when you factor in the Wicked Whispers as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm just thinking, is the Whispers necessary? Because it could still discard the Soulfire given that he plays Flesh Giant first.
True. Yeah.
I was getting a little overly fancy there, thinking, do you ever intentionally discard the Flesh Giant? Because the only thing you're losing to is Flick anyway. But I think that's a little bit too deep down the rabbit hole. Xiaobai instead just going to try and minimize the chances of discarding anything significant. Maverick is dead next turn, I'm quite sure, even if he top decks the Flick.
Oh yeah, I mean, he had a pretty cute play with going like Expired Merchant, trade it in, then he can play both the broomsticks that he discarded to get even more, and then Wicked Whispers. I don't know if he's going to get everything in time here, as it looked like it was broke out pretty late, but he got the important stuff done.
Oh, and he even fills up Maverick's hands, so he burns a Flick even if it's off the top. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, nicely done. I don't think the brooms are going to offer enough here. Even with like giant broom and sap, it's still just short.
Just doesn't get there, and that looks like a pretty classic Zoo game. Xiaobai showing us how it's done and why this deck has performed so well throughout the tournament. Even looking beyond the raw performance on stream that we've seen, the consensus of top players on Twitter also seems like if they had another chance to bring our lineup, a lot of people were saying, oh, I wish I brought Zoo. It seemed like such a good meta call for this.
I think it was a fantastic meta call, all things considered. And getting out of the way is a big deal here for Maverick, because a lot of his lineup does feel a little bit vulnerable to the Zoo overall. And now the things can really start for him. He's still got, of course, very, very strong decks. Xiaobai, for the most part on the other side, does also have fairly standard decks. He doesn't have that weird burn mage that we saw from Trahisa. No super aggro decks outside of this, so it's just going to be a pretty standard series of Hearthstone now for Maverick in terms of the meta he's facing, even if it's not in terms of what is at stake.
I would make a fair argument for his warrior being pretty aggressive, though. Not super,
sure.
Again, like because we do have decks like Stealth Rogue and Zoo on the spectrum, but it is built more aggressively than most warriors overall. And my mistake, it's been banned away, so never mind. You're right, Derek. It's the Rogue now that has a bit more of the aggressive punch to it.
Yeah, exactly. He's going with the Whirl Kick version, but only with one Whirl Kick, which is kind of what people have been saying since its inception, is this deck is pretty good, but I think Whirl Kick is the worst card in the deck. I really want to find a way to cut it, which, you know, a lot of the time, it makes sense. It sits around as a 2-mana 1/2 a lot of the time. but then you play it one game and it gives you 3 eviscerates and you just win the game. Like, every so often it delivers just enough to make it worth it, and I do personally believe that 2 World Kicks is a good way to go with the list, just to give you that extra consistency. But the list that Xiaobai has gone for, that has an extra Ogremancer there instead, could be pretty good against Maverick's, for the most part, pretty spell-heavy lineup.
In terms of deck building, Xiaobai has pretty consistently shown that he is taking these streamlined lists and just taking out some of the second copies of some cards that he feels are mediocre and adding in text here and there. For this Rogue in particular, the weird card that's taking the place of the second World Kick Master is Ogremancer, which that card just seems to be popping up in every archetype that people can find a way to fit it in. I can see it putting in some work maybe against Maverick's OTK Demon Hunter, maybe against the Rogue too to a certain extent, not so much against the Warrior, but Priest of course banned away. So Ogremancer, if it's going to get some work done, it's going to be making the Demon Hunter's life awkward.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a bit of a rough spot. I do think that the Demon Hunter is still in a pretty good spot for Maverick. It kind of feels like the universe is almost taunting me here, because after I obviously incorrectly called a lethal that I was saying that he had missed, he's found some of the hardest lethals I think I've seen in a long time with Demon Hunter this tournament, like where you deliberately don't copy a Moarg so that you have more mana to play extra spells in the turn and things like that. He clearly is extremely well practiced with the deck, which is what you need to be to take down these decks. Anyone can win, or almost anyone apart from me can win the easy Demon Hunter games where you just draw all your damage. But it's the weird lethals where I think Maverick really starts to shine with the deck.
It is true. And even though Xiaobai is ahead 1 in the series, I do worry about the state of this Paladin. It feels like it has a decent matchup against the Warrior, but beyond that, I'm not so sure. Because Paladin these days, I feel, is generally not fast enough with the pressure to get the lethal done before OTK Demon Hunter gets their lethal. And Paladin can very easily get swarmed by rogues on the other side, especially if they get the early questing.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that I've been underwhelmed, as has everyone, obviously, by the Paladins so far this weekend. I kind of like the list that Xiaobai is going for. Again, I like the Crab Riders. I love the Blessing of Wisdoms. I think it was a very welcome inclusion to the deck, completely revitalizing a card that we haven't seen in a long time. But I do also like the builds that we saw from Floki earlier today that instead included the extra copies of Argent Braggart to have a bit of extra punch in the deck. But it is going to be the World Kick Rogue now from Xiaobai. As we were saying, Ogremancer up there at the top, Flick in there as well. It's kind of close to the list that I like running, except it is still missing that Edwin, which I think if we had given the metagame another week, maybe if there'd been another tournament after seeing the way things had shaped out this weekend, there would be a significantly higher number of Edwins in these World Kick Rogues.
And it's so funny that we say that, like, oh, if we had one more week, this meta could have still evolved further, because this meta is, frankly, really, really old. Players have had time to play with this mini set for quite some few weeks or even months now, and we do have possibly the newest meta on our horizon in just a couple more weeks from now. So it's really a great way to send off this face of Hearthstone with 2 amazing players and a meta that we are still solving as we speak right now. And Xiaobai has Ferrocat for the opener. Always love to see that. Questing, probably not a keep without the coin though.
One thing that is a keep with the coin, and I would have to imagine with the prep as well, is old Edwin Van Cleef. Even if it comes down a turn later, I think it's especially welcome in the Secret Rogue variant, because there are even more spells that you will very happily prep out. It's not like when you go prep Backstab or something like that a lot of the time just to get the cards played. It's active tempo and card advantage when you factor in the Plagiarize and Dirty Tricks.
And had the Edwin not been there, I think there was a very valid consideration for Maverick to go something like Coin Hanar and then follow up with a secret. Of course, it's always weak to backstab, but that's scary at most points in the game. Given that there is the Edwin in hand, though, I could fully expect the upcoming turn to be Coin Prep Secret Edwin, the classic.
And this is something I've actually said a couple of times from Maverick. When he got the 14-14 Edwin against the Druid, and now as well, he's been very liberal with his Hanars, which I kind of like, actually. I think he correctly realizes that this hand is doing insanely powerful stuff already, and it's not really necessary to hold on to the Hanar for a whole bunch of extra value.
yeah, it's really just one or the other is your win condition. And the thing is, when you try to get too greedy with both, then either win condition becomes harder to achieve. And honestly, I was thinking I would definitely go in this turn, especially with the backstep to deal with the Pharaoh Cat, but Maverick, super patient here, gets rid of the shot bot, deletes the extra attack damage, and makes it harder for Xiaobai to go for any sort of race game plan.
Yeah, I really, really like his hesitance to go in too early with the Edwin. Like, any spell having been played to give back to him would be very, very powerful. He does, in the end, just get back a measly shot bot, which is not really what you're after, but still shaping up to be a pretty strong turn here.
Now the coin doesn't feel like it's doing so much. I'm looking for a questing turn instead of an Edwin, but it feels like in order to be mana efficient using the questing, you give up a lot of the stats anyway. So Maverick here is going to delay a little bit further and get the dagger down, which allows him to clean up a little bit more of this board, have the second half of the dagger be preloaded, and try to fight back. But I am worried because he still needs like either a minion or a spell to really make either of his payoff cards pop next turn.
Yeah, he does. There are many of them in the deck, of course, but the problem is that, those are disgusting. As he's been waiting for there to be a clear board for his Edwin, Xiaobai has not let up one iota. With this Jandis this turn, Ogre Manson next turn as well, you would have to imagine. It's going to be very difficult to clear the runway for Edwin to sweep the game.
I think this Jandis might just solo the game. Look at the stats on these. I would imagine he puts the illusion on the Divine Shield minion. And both of them are not only well statted, 4 or 5 drops, they have additional effects on top of that. That's kind of broken.
Yeah, this is absolutely illegal. That Prize Plunderer, though, is a very potent top deck indeed. How he goes about this is a little bit more difficult, but we could see a clear on both the 5 drops here, assuming the Divine Shield Griffin Rider is the illusion version.
True. So it's something like questing Prize Plunderer, step Prize Plunderer, and play it again. There's like mana that's gonna float no matter what he does. And also killing the Totem Goliath is not even necessarily that good because then Xiaobai has a bunch of stuff on board. Granted, only one of them can attack, but yeah, Maverick doesn't really have any other options here. He is going to go for Prize Plunder plus Edwin instead, is what I assume.
Yeah, I think he has to go prep Edwin and then Plunderer in order to get the necessary 5 damage. So you lose 1 buff on Edwin, but obviously to clear a 5/5, it's more than worth it.
He's also just got to dagger the other 5/5 first because of Taunt Totem. Oh,
really?
He's actually betting on the other one, and he guesses it right. Wow. This is next level mind games, and he got it right.
I 100% would have got that wrong. 100%.
Me too. Damn. Impressive stuff. And not only is it an impressive call, it takes a lot of guts to make that call because a mistake here possibly costs Maverick the entire game.
I mean, I would kind of argue that is still a mistake, though. Like, even if you had face-up information, I still would have liked making the Edwin too smaller and then stabbing the Totem Goliath as well. Because there was essentially a 5/1 left on board, right? Like, if he had this God read, either way, he was going essentially all in on the idea that the Carousel Rider was the real version.
Right. Yes, I definitely see your point. Yeah, it's because what you were discussing a while ago was how to do the full clear, but the other way around.
Yeah. It was a tough spot.
Maverick just changed his mind towards the end as to what he thought was the illusion minion. Either way, despite one of those minions getting cleared, Xiaobai has the Ogre Master follow-up plus World Kickmaster, and Maverick is running on fumes.
Yeah, no matter how you slice it here, whatever Maverick could or could not have done better in that instance, this game is rapidly approaching its end. I think Maverick is going to be very hard-pressed to pull this one back enough, especially with all the extra value that Xiaobai has now generated. And like, if Maverick wants to step here, he deletes nothing from the board. It's basically just the same, as he would have to then use the Kobold just to clear off an extra 2/2. Obviously he gets the buff, but it does not feel good.
Definitely not. I was even considering just stepping the Miscreant to have another chance at Ethereal Lackey next turn, but even then, I don't know what singular spell could pull Maverick out of this one. So even if Xiaobai doesn't have face-up lethal this turn, it's just a very slow and methodical path to victory for this game, and that means Maverick would have to go for a reverse sweep from here on out in a very, very quick fashion.
He would indeed. Obviously, this is not over quite yet, but it will only be the Paladin left over if Xiaobai is able to close this one out. And, okay, to be fair, if you're left with 2 cards to try and pull off the miracle, Jandice and Witchy Lackey are the ones that you are looking for. Decent on the Wasteland Assassin, not decent enough though. We need something huge here.
Oh, if he had more health to play with, that was certainly quite enough stats between the Karen Dathradal and the Wasteland Assassin Reborn, but alas, he took too much damage in the early game. Xiaobai takes it in a stunningly quick fashion, I think off the back of the best Jandice I've seen all tournament.
Yeah, it was pretty disgusting, I will put it that way. Although, we did see from Floki today, wasn't it Moonfang and Greybow off the same Jandice, which I think was the most disgusting one I've ever seen. He still lost the game, I think, afterwards, for that matter, but technically I believe he gets the strongest Jandice of the day award. But now, for Xiaobai, it is just that Paladin left. And, you know, we've been talking a lot about how it's been doing weak or as it's been not achieving its expectations, I will say, this weekend. Why do you think that is, Gia? And what can the players try to change in maybe their play style or their mulligan to bolster that win rate a little bit?
I think a large part of Paladin's not so stellar win rate has been just maybe players not recognizing that the field would have quite a bit of aggro, but not the traditional aggro you'd expect in, like, say, Stealth Rogue, where all the minions die to single pen flingers and they really, really struggle with taunts. The players who have brought aggro have it in the version of, say, this Whirl Kick Rogue, of Token Druid and Zoo, which all flood the board in such a way that Paladin generally hasn't cheapened their Libram of Justice early enough to deal with all of it. And so Paladin really, really struggles to get there, even if they do hit that early one drop into Hand of a Doll curve.
Yeah, that's the difference, isn't it? It's that they can hit these tempo starts, but then if they don't get every piece of their late game combo, it doesn't come together. They need to have drawn the Librams of Wisdom, drawn the Aldor cards, the Truth Seeker and the Attendant to make them cheaper, draw the Pen Flingers, draw the Lady Liadrin so that they can actually get more copies of it. It's so many steps you need to hit before you hit that almost unbeatable combo of Pen Flingers and Libram of Wisdoms earlier on. Given that Xiaobai has 3 chances to hit it, it is still looking good for him. But Maverick still has plenty of fight back with what is his pretty standard, but overall very, very powerful lineup.
It's true, and I think out of the top 8, he's the only OTK Demon Hunter, at least that I've seen, and it's for good reason that he's made it so far with this deck. I think Maverick has shown incredible understanding on it, and I'm of the opinion that's it's got a favorable matchup against Libram Paladin because, again, Paladin doesn't quite put on the pressure so fast and has no way of disrupting discounts or big combos on the other side. And it's just a question of what Maverick wants to start with. Of course, it doesn't matter because he has to win with every single deck. And I do think the Warrior will have the hardest time of it because maybe they don't have as good of a way of dealing with buffed minions.
We shall have to see. The Rogue going up against it first of all. This feels like one of the matchups where it is most crucial to hit that early game curve. And Xiaobai going with an interesting mulligan right from the get-go. First day of school, absolutely. A lot of cheap cards that you can play off of that suit the playstyle very nicely. But Barov, when your opponent is on the play rather than on the coin, seems a little bit suspect to me.
Yeah, it is a very pessimistic keep, I will say. And it kind of clues you into Xiaobai's mindset where he feels that as long as he has an answer for a questing / Edwin early on, he should generally be okay for the rest of the game. But as you were outlining, Paladin requires so many boxes to be ticked that I personally, especially on the coin, would feel like it's a greater priority to hit card draw / Libram discount / early curve. But we'll see how it pans out for Xiaobai.
I mean, it's panning out pretty well right now. The choice is whether you go for Crab Rider or more one-drops. I honestly wouldn't have hated just seeing First Day at School first to see what one-drops you can get. Maybe you hit Flame Imp or Aldor Attendant on one of the other broken one-cost minions. But I suppose a 1/5 Penflinger is pretty broken in its own right.
Yeah, I mean, the health buff guaranteed on Crab Rider is a little too juicy to give up here. He doesn't have Hand of Adal or Blessing of Wisdom in hand, but it's certainly threatening from Maverick's perspective, and in some cases, Maverick might overcommit removal into this.
And I think Maverick can afford to chill here. Even if you're afraid of the Hand of Adal, the Blessing of Libram of Wisdom, anything that can buff this Crab Rider, he has got one heck of a swing turn coming around. One single spell that he can prep out, be it Swindle or one of the secrets as well. And he's looking in a very, very good spot.
Yeah, I also agree with the chill here because he can get far more out of the Prize Plunderer and a bigger questing should he hit that one condition. That's another chicken! And a Leper Gnome. Terribly statted cards, but both with very famous memes attached to them.
Yeah, in the realm of both podcasts and Hearthstone cards as well, the Angry Chicken is the gift that keeps on giving here. As it's a very aggressive start still for Xiaobai, prioritizing the card draw by throwing down the Loot Hoarder as well, which I think is absolutely the right time to do so. You want to find the Aldor Truth Seeker, some of the other powerful mid-game cards as well.
Maverick cannot afford to wait any longer. Unfortunately, no spell picked up to really get some bang out of these preps. Instead, they're going to be used as still for two purposes, buffing both the questing and the Prize Plunderer Battle Cry. But this is so expensive, he just does not have follow-up.
We can go Shadow Step and then just expend another prep on no minion, on no spells, if he wants to get the full clear.
Yeah, on everything but the Blood Imp. But there's a line where he keeps prep and I guess daggers down the rest of the Crab Rider. You leave up a 2/1 though, so I think with the hand like this from Maverick, where any singular spell he draws would be playable anyway next turn, even without prep, it's right to go for the full clear. All in on the board control. But he will be very sad to see that Xiaobai has all three of the ways to deal with questing, both Librams of Death and Barov.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say being results-oriented Barov was a great keep. In this result, it actually kind of wasn't, because Libram is almost better, it feels like here.
Yeah. I mean, if he doesn't want to face tank the 7, there was like Barov plus coin Libram of Wisdom on the Blood Imp. But I think it's fine. He is super healthy here. Just get the weapon online, save the Barov for something more important, and that's a yikes.
There's so many draws that can put Maverick in the driving seat, because Xiaobai, despite his aggressive start, again, it's another one of these Paladin games where they just can't profit on that. They just have a weak mid-game again. Maverick could hit Secret Passage, any secret, Swindle. There's so many good cards he can hit him. He's just missing all of them.
It's rough. Maverick just did not have any gas. There's still time, like you said, but that time is quickly running out because Xiaobai has he has hit his first Libram discounter here, and that means the Librams of Wisdom, of course it's going to go on the Angry Chicken.
I absolutely love that during testing, I completely forgot that Angry Chicken actually had text. It came up, this exact situation where it was buffed, and I was like, oh, we just leave it, right? It's not going to do anything. And now twice so far this weekend, Angry Chicken has had the opportunity to be buffed up on its attack and deliver huge amounts of damage. It's perfect.
I wonder if it was going to get flicked, honestly. I mean, just to get on board for Maverick, but he says clearly not good enough.
You know what, Gia? I'm not such a fan of a chick flick, so I'm glad we're not.
Okay, even though you interrupted me, I'm gonna forgive it because
Is it actually happening? Oh, The Penflinger to buff up the damage as well.
5 more to face. This is the player in the way. It's the chicken.
Okay, okay.
Again.
A secret. Now we are in business. If he can hit Flame Ward almost exactly here, or maybe Explosive Trap will be good enough, we're in business.
Oh yes, we are in business. And the Prize Plunderer can get rid of one of the 3 health minions, but like I was saying a while ago, before I was so rudely interrupted by the trick flick, Xiaobai was very smartly kind of distributing his buffs on several minions so that if there was going to be a sap effect, he could still have another buff minion left.
I mean...
Noble?
Probably Noble, right? Just so you can play it.
But it's Prize Plunderer this turn.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Shadow Step.
Stop any damage.
So in retrospect, I guess the Dirty Tricks does make more sense because it fits with the flick next turn and Maverick has like no cards after this turn. And it appears that he's going to respect the chicken anyway because even though he has that explosive trap, if there's any health buff or healing on the chicken, that's a 7 to the face that he cannot afford to take.
It's getting to the point though where even this damage from the Leponome could end up being relevant. This chip damage is just getting there turn after turn.
Now, Xiaobai, as long as he doesn't spectacularly mess up with these secrets, I think has this one in the bag. So he has to be aware first of trade minion secrets, so Snake Trap, Pack Tactics, Bamboozle.
I wonder...
Are any of those scary enough? He could start with Libram of Wisdom and test for Pressure Plate. I think he has enough minions on board to justify it being okay to start with the Libram, even if it is a possible Pressure Plate. But he does Hero Power first, okay?
Yep. This feels like a good way to go about it. It gives the Dirty Tricks fine. Can't stop your opponent from getting a bit of card advantage. And again, the main thing is just that he is delivering so much damage.
Gets the news that it wasn't any spell-related secret, so then he tests for all the minion-related ones and gets the good news that he's still able to full clear. Oh, what does Maverick do?
I think the flick is too valuable to save. Like, Evil Miscreant as well, very possibly you'll be able to do even a better job than the flick a lot of the time for less mana.
Sure. I mean, he still has this explosive trap as some measure of insurance to just dying straight up on board, but Xiaobai is in no rush to proc that. He's gonna make it as awkward as Maverick as possible.
Man, this one is actually going to be really close, I think. I don't want to call this over for Xiaobai at all. The Libram of Hope is huge, obviously, to get a big threat, but then there's Flick. One of the Penflingers has gone now, so there's no guarantee that the damage can get there.
This is clutch for Maverick, though. The stunner on... Is it on the Salhead to prevent? Or is it delete a Libram of Wisdom? He chooses option B. And this option also has the upside of every minion on board currently dies to Explosive Trap.
Yeah, I think this is very much the way to go for Maverick.
And Xiaobai knows that this is a face-related secret. He knows it's not Pressure Plate, so he's very free to go for just Libram of Hope here if he likes.
Yeah, I guess proccing it now is probably the way to go. I was wondering if he could just ignore it for even longer, given that he's probably just playing the Libram of Hope on this turn, but dealing with it while you can so that your smaller board later on can go face is a very wise way to approach it.
But here is the big swing turn for Maverick. He's held on to the flick religiously. It's going to get rid of a big minion, and he can evolve it as well. I think that's worth holding off on Edwin.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you kind of just die if you go for the Edwin on this turn. And so it's really just how you want to fill out the rest of your mana. I would guess that Dirty Tricks is probably better here.
No additional stats gained from the Witchy Lackey. That is really, really rough.
Easy go.
Xiaobai has plenty of health to work with, and now a cheap Devout Pupil that he can rush as well.
I do love
it's slipping away from Maverick.
It is.
I cannot
but it's still not over. He's still got the Edwin. He's got lackeys to try and clear some of this off. Like, 11 health is not nothing as well. Libram has been deleted. Penflinger has gone as well. Xiaobai went very all in on the damage plan, and it still is not guaranteed to get there.
I mean, I'm looking at this Edwin, yes, but I'm looking at Xiaobai with Barov and Libram of Justice.
Yeah.
He's got the checks. So what I think really is this will come down to the cards left in both players' decks rather than what we see on hand right now. And Xiaobai has Lady Liadrin in there. Even just the one Libram of Hope he already has in hand, I don't know how Maverick deals with.
Going to be very, very tough.
Okay, promising. Like, Jandis backstab Kobold Edwin seems like a strong turn.
Just a good turn, yeah.
Has to be a great Jandis though. Rush or Taunt is what we're looking for. Otherwise, the Devout Pupil's probably sticking around.
Yeah, it does look that way.
No! Not the Blood Herald! Okay, Worm Reaver is decent, but it's not immediately impacting the board. That's the big problem.
It isn't, but it's going nice and wide. And this Barov is a way to reduce the health, obviously, and clear off the Edwin 100%. But without, I guess, Broom as well, then it's not necessarily going to be a clear. Now, the Worms, the Edwin, and I think Maverick's Hope is all going to die here.
Yeah, the Broom, I think, is a foregone conclusion because of Salhead. Maverick doesn't know what this card that was kept from the very beginning was. I honestly would not have a read on Barov, but it is actually just lethal if he's doing this? Question mark.
Penflinger,
yeah,
Libram
it
for
is.
the damage. Penflinger again, I think that is going to be it. Who even needs the clear when you have the lethal and when you have a 3-0 sweep over Mavericks? Xiaobai does it in style as he becomes our Masters Tour Ironforge champion. What a finals, Gia.
What? So quickly, Derek. In the blink of an eye, Xiaobai takes it 3-0. We had a bunch of grueling series at the start of the day and then some 3-1s in the middle. But who would have thought that at the very end, it would be a 3-0 sweep in complete reverse of what I was predicting. I should never make any predictions ever again. But congratulations to Xiaobai. That was done in such a stellar fashion. Really just clean plays, start to finish.
Yeah, very, very clean stuff. That game at the end there, his aggressive push for damage right at the start, it's again one of the things that Paladin has felt like it's been missing. The fact that he could prioritize on that damage at the end was the missing link, I think, indeed. And there are just so many great things to talk about here now for Xiaobai, because not only is it fantastic news for him, it's fantastic news for his team, who I've been told KZG are going to be competing in the Hearthstone Team League for the first time this year. It is also great news for China in general as a Hearthstone country, because that is their second Masters Tour victory in a row. And, you know, at what has traditionally been, in terms of the seasonal championships in the previous system, world championships as well, China has kind of struggled. Now any mention of that has been thoroughly put to rest with so many dominant performances from players all across China.
Impressive stuff all around, but of course we have to take our hats off for Maverick as well, who has put in, I believe, a very, very consistent performance. This entire tournament, I don't think I've seen one objective misplay from him, at least when I've been casting his series. There have been plays where I was like, is this really how you go about it? But in retrospect, I see that there's reason for why he does things like that, either playing around something from his opponent or setting up for a bigger combo later with Soul Demon Hunter. And I can't stop commending him on his Soul Demon Hunter play, because that deck is so difficult. And I'm sure a lot of the viewers will be sad to see that Maverick was not able to take it all the way through, but a second place finish is not only very respectable, but he'll take home a hefty chunk of prize money and